Good morning. It is Thursday morning, day 4 reInvent. I'm Stephen Barr.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Subramaniam. Welcome to our early morning 6 a.m. show. We are up and early. There's literally a blur between night and day. It
Yeah,
just feels like a couple of hours ago when we wrapped up the activities of yesterday.
I think it was a couple of hours ago. I think it was not. It wasn't that long ago.
But what an amazing time it's been here in Vegas. As you can see, it's still absolutely dark at 6 a.m. over here. But we're really excited to bring to you some amazing new announcements. A lot of stuff happening here.
Yes. It has been a very busy reInvent. At first, I was looking at the table. What is this? What is this on the table here?
So, if you missed this, we did something yesterday that has never been done at reInvent. We actually did a sketch
It was
on the stage,
yeah.
a 1 hour sketch on stage at reInvent talking about the story of cloud cost optimization.
I think now that it's over and the nerves are down, so we did. It was called the Cost Saving Spectacular. It was Rahul and I. Rahul was playing our manager. Darko and I were the novice developers, eager but perhaps a little uninformed of a cloud transition. And then Steph was our AWS solutions architect, setting
Yeah.
us on the right path whenever we would do something silly. At one point, I was doing a lift and shift, and I launched 168 big instances, and then Raul walks in and he said,
This is,
"Can
this is
you can you
supposed to be
do
the AWS bill.
Yes." He goes, "What is
There we
this
go.
guy? Can you reenact that?"
Yeah. So this is supposed to be
Here it is.
the first AWS bill we get as we try and migrate all our stuff to the cloud.
Yeah, that's it. And AWS doesn't actually print you out receipts, but it was a good prop. It served its purpose. I'm going to put something on screen to kind of show you the vibe.
And we had
Share
a
screen.
huge um, breakout space. I think it had a seating capacity of about 500.
Yeah, it was
And
great.
thanks for all of those who came. It was absolutely amazing. The energy was awesome, and it was fun for us to get on stage, do some cheesy acting.
Yeah, it was a blast. I
It was
cannot
such a
complain at
blast.
all. It was really fun.
Yeah,
We yeah, and we had people come up to us and say thank you for something visual, something that was very tangible
right.
representation of the mistakes that we've all made. And I think that was the point. I love how Darko emphasized at the beginning. These are things that we've done in practice.
Exactly.
Start instances and forgotten about them, and then
Correct.
get a bill at the end of the month. Oh my gosh, how did this happen? So that was a blast.
Absolutely. It was just an interesting experience to do something completely different from what you would see in traditional breakouts. I hear that within the next 48 hours to maybe up to a week, the video will be online. We will share it with
For a
all of
week.
you who couldn't make it in person in Vegas. like you can see, I'm losing my voice, but it is absolutely amazing.
What I think was funny, we were setting up the media. Now, Steph and Darko are seasoned reInvent presenters. And so, what you do is you go up to the camera crew and you say, okay, this is what's going to generally happen. And usually it's, okay, if they say, wow, there's 4 speakers. Okay, so you're just coming up one after another and sharing the podium. And Steph goes, no, we're all going to be on stage at the same time. And the camera crew, what? Okay. And we have a prop. Oh my god! And it was kind of fun because they were stressed, but it was a fun stress.
Yeah.
I think as a camera person, perhaps filming mostly dry talks is not that exciting. I saw a few snoozing camera crew going into other breakout sessions, but I think we gave them a challenge,
Yeah.
and they're all professional. They rose to the occasion, got us mic'd and in focus, and just said, "Okay, don't go past this monitor here. Don't go past this monitor here." Okay, we did it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we kept throwing curveball after curveball at them. I don't think they've ever had to record quite a breakout session like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the final YouTube video looks like. But it was probably the most fun thing that I've ever done at reInvent.
Likewise. And I hope we get an encore performance. We'll have to see.
Let's see.
There was no tomatoes. So
Yep. And
that's
then that
pretty
was
cool.
followed up by another talk that I did. Hope some of you attended that. Again, it was awesome fun to do it. We did one on how to actually save money on AWS. I was sharing a lot of insights from all of our experiences. over the last 16 years working with AWS and also via CloudFix, all the insights that we've had looking at tons and tons of data. So that was a really fun exercise as well. So all in all, an amazing day.
Yes, definitely. That was, I was there at your talk. It was really good to get this practical. I saw lots of people jotting down notes, and that was very actionable advice that you can see people thought, okay, here's an area that I've overlooked, right? Because you can have things dialed in one area and think, wow, I didn't even think about idle elastic IP addresses or any other kind of idle resource. So people writing down notes, and hopefully they have some good takeaways for saving money for their organizations.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get the survey scores so that I can figure out how to communicate all of that stuff in a more effective manner. But once the video comes out, please let me know what you think about it so that the next time we're presenting information, data, and insights, we can communicate that better to all of you. Okay. So what are we covering today on the show?
Well, I know with that line from The Princess Bride of, let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me sum up. I think even summing up is going to be hard in this case. So what we realize is, in order to properly give this a full justice, we're going to have to do a reInvent recap series.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that. So this is almost the preview of the reInvent recap series. There's been so much launched, particularly in Swami Sivasubramanian's talk. There's a lot there. There's last year he talked about data being the connective tissue of our organizations, and then yesterday's keynote, it's that plus generative AI.
Correct.
So there's so much there. So we'll jump into it. Should we talk about the predictions we made and see how it affected Swami's talk?
Yeah, let's absolutely do that.
Let me pull up the first one. So in the beginning of the AWS series, we talked about Graviton 4, that was announced.
Yes.
Yes. And then here, generative AI everywhere. That is the theme of Swami's keynote, generative AI everywhere. And then, yes, data integration.
You're already starting to see that everywhere. Amazon Q is everywhere. A lot of the Bedrock agents, you're starting to see that all over the place. I was playing around a little bit yesterday with Q. It's actually pretty neat. You can get enterprise-grade chatbots, which basically understand and have natural language understanding of all of your questions. They can parse through all of your data. And the amazing thing is that they have 30 different data sources from which you can pull data with literally a click of a button. And it's absolutely amazing. So you can pull in all of your enterprise data, bring it all into Amazon Q, and then you can go ahead and start querying it like a chatbot. You can embed it within your applications. It's pretty neat.
That's really neat. You had a chance to already experiment with it. I mean, a lot of people are going to be doing that. So it's a neat technology.
It is. It absolutely is. But yeah, you're going to see Amazon, pretty much all the generative AI models play a role somewhere or the other within the AWS services. We are starting to see that, tons of announcements around SageMaker, tons of announcements. So yesterday, the other one that was actually pretty neat, and we'll go through, a quick rundown of all the announcements. I don't think we'll have the ability to analyze them, deeply or even rate them like we usually do, because it's been an absolute fire hose. Like, we've just been inundated with the sheer volume of these announcements. Just trying to keep up with them has been impossible given all the other things that have been happening. So,
well, even the list of categories that you put out here, I'll put this on the screen. This is the list of categories that we need to go through. And these aren't announcements. These are categories of announcements. So
Correct.
There we go. These are what's going to be the basis of our recap series that will take us through December and into January.
I'm pretty sure that this is going to take up a lot of time, and we will spend a lot of time analyzing all the nitty-gritty details. We'll bring you all of the stuff. Ideally, we will also like to have a bunch of AWS folks coming in and explaining a lot of this stuff and simplifying it down for everyone else. And, tell us what you would like to see in these episodes. One of the ideas that we were discussing a little earlier was we'd love to have AWS guests. We would love to make it practical, where we actually, do demos and, try out stuff on almost like our hackathon series, try out stuff, share it with you, and make it easier for you to consume all of this information.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So we'll please tell us what you want to see. We wanted to make it interactive and usable, right? Usable right away. We're going to be in the console. running through some code and showing you how you can make this work.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's. Should we do a quick summary of Swami's talk?
Yes. So from a high level overview, still about data, right? Data is the lifeblood of the company. But then we have generative AI. And one of the points that he made about generative AI is that it's learning how to control cost is a challenge with this.
Yes.
That's going to be even harder for companies to do. I mean, now that there's so much excitement around it, and then with excitement, but there's also a lot of costs. It's a new thing. There's new
Correct.
metrics in terms of how AI cost is accounted for. So that's something that we're all going to need to learn and adapt to. Let's see other announcements. Building up on how do you take generative AI and build it into an enterprise product, and what are those building blocks that you need, and how do you make sure things like data integrity, make sure your data is staying where you want it to, that you have reassurance that when you train a model on some data, that your data isn't being brought back into a pool with everyone else's, and that someone could ask a question about your internal data. So a lot of building blocks that Amazon's made to make it usable in a corporate setting.
Yeah, I think one of the other key challenges that actually didn't get addressed quite to the same extent was there's also a challenge in that when you take a large pool of data that is private, even within your own org, to have the generative AI be able to, in a very customized manner, deliver the responses in the context of what other people should have access to within your org itself. So, for example, if you have key financial data, maybe your finance team would get a certain kind of response for questions against finance, but someone else who should not have access to sensitive data should not get back responses from the same data pool. So understanding what the context of responses should be in terms of permissions, more importantly, is also one of the big challenges that we are starting to see across the board. So there are going to be a lot of things that are going to need to be solved over the next few months, and I can't wait to see what folks come up with. Right now, we're seeing a lot of very generic use cases, like a chatbot that tells you how to do things right, where you don't care so much about permission schemes and stuff like that. It's generally public information. You just want to be able to parse it, and you should be able to get access to it effectively. So that stuff is great. But as we get into more advanced use cases, which are private customized data for every individual and restricts corporate information in specific ways, those are all going to be very interesting challenges to see how people are solving them.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like the position Amazon's taking is, here are all the building blocks to do it. And I think one thing that they will build on is going to be eventually prescriptive guidance and best practices, and those will evolve over time. But the feeling that this is I think we've talked about this before, we're on the cusp of another revolution in terms of how things get done. Just like, when you first log into the internet, you're like, okay, this is different. Or when you first search the web with Google, instead of going to, a ring of links, you said, okay, this is going to be different. This is the scale that we're looking at. We're going to be interacting with text and with knowledge in a very different way than we used to.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, Titan. This is the first announcement. Titan image generator. I will pull this on screen.
Let's pull it up. So actually, there are a bunch of new Titan models that got announced. I'm going to change the view over here. Yeah, much better. Okay, so now you have image, you have multimodal embeddings, you've got text models. All of those are now available. This is pretty neat. I think the catalog in Bedrock, like we talked about yesterday, the catalog in Bedrock is constantly increasing, and you are going to start. I think that's going to be. I'm realizing more and more that the fact that you can actually have different kinds of models that are really good at some very specific things, instead of having one very generic model, has a ton of practical implications when you're trying to build large-scale deployments of your application or production deployments of your application. It's very expensive to just have one model do everything, and having one framework with multiple models, just have different parameters in the same query, same way of accessing it. That's incredibly valuable.
Just like people, right? We all have different skill sets, and then be able to organize ourselves into a company or into an organization to be able to leverage that. It's the same with models, right?
Exactly.
You'll have different skill sets, different things you're good at. And so you need to figure out what's the right combination and configuration to
Correct.
accomplish a wider objective.
Exactly.
Well, so for those of you who haven't used image generation, check it out. It's really, really neat to be able to just type in the text and all of a sudden you've got image. So in this blog post, they're showing, okay, Titan image generator G1 is now in the set of models that you can select from. I'm showing you right there in the screenshot. And you can use, you can quickly create and refine images using just a regular prompt. You can say, I want a llama flying in a spaceship and landing on the surface of the moon, and it will figure out how to make that.
Yep.
I like this blog post because it's giving you code, it's showing you how to do this, showing how the Python works, and then there we go. That's incredible. This is generative.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that they were very cartoonish and would generate very implausible things, but this is a semi-realistic or even near realistic image generator.
I think the term is photorealistic.
Photorealistic. Okay.
So one of the, we certainly have come a really long way. If you remember the very first set of generative AI models that were generating those kinds of images were the stable diffusion ones, where the primary use case was to try and create certain paintings with natural language text. But we've come such a long way. I can't wait for a time when it is all video, where you can actually generate video. I mean, there are some examples of that already happening, but to be able to generate videos, end to end would be absolutely stunning.
I remember even just a few months ago, let me see if I can find it. I used CloudFix on the CloudFix blog. I used generative AI.
Yes.
I was trying to compare GP3 to like a general purpose file system, and I said it's like a minivan. And I used, there it is. Let me put this on the screen. This is funny. And I asked it to give me a picture of two minivans, and it gave it to me stacked on top of each other. Right, and this is what generative AI art was, a year ago or a few months ago.
Yeah.
And now just from that to this, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of indicates the change or the pace of change that we are seeing in this area. It's hard to keep up with everything, but it's absolutely amazing.
So how are we going to integrate this into the Rahul cost optimization bot?
I think the thing that we miss a lot in a lot of our content is visualizations. I'd love to see what we could do to generate interesting visualizations that will help you keep track. Like, I wish that there was an image. Like, every time there was a conversation about your volume types, there was an image that comes in your head that says, move to GP3. Or if you were launching an S3 bucket, you had this image in your head that said, do not turn it on without intelligent tiering. Maybe there was a dumb S3 bucket that always showed up, and you're like, no, I have not turned on an S3 intelligent tiering. Let me just make this smart, or something like that. Something weird and quirky that will make you do the right thing every time you're launching an S3 bucket. Or
this seems like the perfect topic for a Friday generative AI hackathon, especially a post reInvent generative AI hackathon, where we can relax a little bit and play with these new AWS products and have some fun. And also just add, that visual is a big value add.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is how we learn things. We associate an image with a particular feeling or sentiment, and that's one way we can kind of lock that knowledge in.
Actually, here's a very concrete one that we should do. Let's do the CloudFix best practices flashcards.
Yes. Okay. I like that. I think that should be next year's swag.
The entire flashcard series for CloudFix best practices, and or the AWS cost optimization best practices, and we will make that swag for next year's reInvent.
You've heard it here first. So see you in 360 days. We will make this happen.
Awesome.
All right. So that's the Titan image generator. And just to point out, the blog post was made by Anshia Barth, and she is the author of a book that is about to come out. I'll put this on screen for a second. This is Generative AI on AWS, which is amazing. You can write a book about that. It's going to be very up to date for some amount of time. I'm sure there's going to be some key principles that are going to be long lasting, but then the state of the art is going to evolve very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I've got my pre-order in. It looks like it'll be here mid-December. So this is good. Put it on your holiday gift list.
Absolutely. Now, this is going to be amazing. We'll try and do as many of these very practical sessions on generative AI over the next few months, and it helps us as well to just keep up with everything that's going on.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, definitely. Okay, announcement number 2. Llama 2 70B foundation model. So 70B, this B is for billion.
Correct.
Let me put this up on screen, and also I'll put the link in the comments. Here we go. And by the way, welcome everyone who's watching. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your viewership. If you have any questions yet want to ask us, please drop them in the comments. We are monitoring all of those. So thank you again for being here. And what are you going to do with all of these new tools that are released? What ideas are you thinking of now that we have image generation, we have Llama 2? Okay, so tell us about Llama 2, Rahul. What's the relevance of this?
Yeah, so Llama 2 is basically a text model, and I think for a while, including right now, the capabilities of the model were typically a function of how many billion parameters you basically use to train the model, right? We started off with some really low numbers, and then we had OpenAI kind of push from around 32 billion to 70 billion. Now Llama 2 is at 70 billion. Claude is near that number as well. I'm starting to see an interesting shift. So this basically just means that the capabilities of these models are really, really neat. The amount of data that has been fed into the training is phenomenally large. So a lot of the general knowledge, general context about things is being fed into these models, and they're going to be kept as up to date as possible. Now, that said, I would distinguish two things within these models. There's one that is general knowledge or world knowledge that goes into these models, and the other thing is the natural language capabilities, right? The ability to comprehend something that is being said and being able to respond to that, or be able to identify the intent behind that particular natural language query. Those are two things that I'm starting to see separate out in these models. So one of the things is you're now starting to see a bunch of models like Mistral 7 or 7.5 billion parameters, where you have the same or very similar capabilities around comprehension and understanding of intent and things like that, but the world knowledge is a lot smaller. So the places where I see a lot of benefit of that is there are a number of use cases, specifically in business use cases, where the knowledge that you want the system to have is your private knowledge. So you could either train these models or fine-tune these models with your knowledge, or use approaches like RAG to get the kind of responses you want. But the capability you want out of the model is the ability to identify intent accurately. And so this 70 billion is, think of it as, if you really need a lot of world knowledge to be included in your chatbot, then you will need those larger numbers. But in a lot of other use cases, you can have the same natural language, human-like capabilities, but with your personal information. So it's very interesting. We'll have to figure out a lot of patterns around this stuff.
Intent is more complicated than you'd think.
Yes.
We are not as straightforward at communicating as humans as you would like to think so. And a lot of it is based on context and based on cues, based on time of day.
Correct.
Right, asking questions, even in different contexts, can have very different intents.
Absolutely.
Right? So being able to embed more of that into Llama, so that when you ask it a question, it can more, like you said, more accurately determine what you're actually talking about.
Correct.
And then
certain languages are also naturally more unstructured than some other languages. Like English particularly, I think, falls under some of the worst languages when it comes to trying to figure out what the intent was, because there's just the ambiguity is just so terrible. A classic example of that is, invariably when I'm communicating with somebody on WhatsApp, half the time I don't understand their intent, because it's just written text, and everything from intonation to the way something is said or the context of a previous conversation makes a big difference in terms of understanding what someone is trying to say, or the tone of what someone is trying to say. So just text alone may not capture all the intent. Certain words said in certain tones mean something completely different. So it's going to be interesting now that we have voice, we have video, we have text input all kind of mixed together. It's going to be really interesting to see how we are able to capture that more effectively.
And even things like double negatives.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's hard for people, right? There's not anybody here, but there's never nobody here.
Yeah, there's never nobody here.
So there is somebody here, but sometimes that doesn't translate. In some languages, negatives more like emphasize and accumulate instead of logically negate.
Correct. I think you were saying in some language it actually double emphasizes.
Yeah, like in Spanish,
right?
you can say there's if there's a place that doesn't have any, it's not a popular place. You can say there's never nobody here, and then never nobody. Wait, so there is somebody, but then in Spanish it can kind of just accumulate the negativity, and it's not like the double negatives. Wait, there's not nobody, so there is somebody. Yeah,
it's ambiguous.
Yep.
For sure.
It's fun. Well, it's neat to see that we can have more intelligence models.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, Claude 2.1. I guess similar to the Llama announcement. This is a blog post by Channy Yoon on this, showing how you can use Claude 2.1.
Correct.
You can I like this, how it's giving you the example.
Can we put this up on the screen? Yeah. I'm going to
sorry. Here we go.
There we go. Great. So yeah, a lot of new announcements about models that are available in Bedrock. Go check it out. It's really easy. Go to the model permissions section and enable the ones you want. It'll place a request and then enable those for you. So really easy to get started. You can try it out. Okay, right. And then we have Titan multimodal embeddings.
Yes, I'm pulling that up right now.
So now you can embed both text and there we go.
So that's Titan multimodal embeddings. Let's read this through. You can generate embeddings for your content and store them in a vector database. We're going to get to that subject. Storing things in a vector database was another big theme of the keynote.
Yeah, so you can do text, you can do images, you can do video. I'm not sure videos right now, but text and images for sure. You can basically create those as embeddings so that the retrieval of that data for your model is going to be simple. So yeah, lots of embedding features just got added. Let's see.
Well, okay, available US East, US West, US East 1, US West 2. Here's the documentation. So, okay, where's the multimodal part?
I think it's there in the documentation. There we go. No, not in the pricing. So, can you go back to the blog post?
Yeah,
it's right there. Oh, there. I just saw that. Oh,
wait. We have to look more into this. Like we said, we're still trying to digest this in real time. Correct. There's so much here.
Anyway, we will do a deep session, like we said. We're going to do a reInvent recap session where we walk through all of the specific details as we explore them ourselves. Okay, can we quickly summarize the other stuff that was announced during Swami's keynote?
Yes. So one of the big things was vector storage. So this idea with generative AI is that when you have a question or a piece of text that you want to store it in a vector. So a vector is just a list of numbers, and each of the whole idea of this embedding is that you can have a question like, I don't know, what is the best movie of 2023, or a purple dog running through a forest, right? And that all has a unique embedding, which is a set of numbers existing in some predefined space. And so if you are working with generative AI at scale, you're going to want to store those embeddings somewhere. And so a lot of the announcements from Swami's keynotes were about vector storage being added to existing databases. So I'll pull up one article that's kind of emblematic of that theme. Vector search now available in DocumentDB. I'll put this on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, today they announced general availability of vector search for DocumentDB. So vector search is the idea that you can find something similar textually by comparing numbers. It's amazing to think, okay, if this set of numbers is numerically close together, so you can think of almost like the angle between two two lines, but these lines exist in 1,000 dimensions or 2,000 dimensions instead of just X and Y. But the angle between those two means they're very similar statements. And this can be even a picture of something versus text describing that thing. If they're embedded, they will be very close together.
So here is actually, I like an analogy. I don't remember who exactly told me this, but they explained this. They said, and I found this to be the most effective way to explain vectors, the vector embeddings, to someone who is a layperson in the generative AI world, but has a computer science background, which is the way we've historically dealt with hash maps, where you have a hash of the data, and that it basically helps you understand, or get to a certain kind of data very quickly. If you had intents, or if you had data, and you did a hash of it, and you got that hash for that data, that's one element of the vector embedding. The second element of the vector embedding is if you could actually do a diff of the hash that told you how close or not close those two things are, then that becomes the second element of trying to figure out how close two pieces of data really are. And that makes it really easy to figure out what data is the right context. So you can basically say, give me all the vectors in an embedding that are close to whatever question you asked.
Well, I think the diagram that they have in the blog post is really good.
Yes.
So you have documents, an embedding model, and you have these vectors that are representing different concepts. And you can see that as they're getting semantically further away from each other, they're near each other, right? So write and pen are very close. Dog and cat are very close. And then they get stored in a database. And I like the summary they give here, which is to implement a vector search application. You generate vectors using embedded models.
Correct.
For fields inside your document and store the vectors side by side by your source data inside document DB. And then you can create a vector index. It's showing how you can use it then. Yep, this is what a vector would look like. You can insert these, both the text and the vector field, into a document DB collection. We're going to have to definitely play with this. This is going to be a fun thing to learn more about. All right, next article. Let's pull that up on screen. Well, I guess similarly, another announcement was Neptune Analytics.
Yep.
Which was, here, I'll put this on screen. And this is adding the capability of Neptune Analytics to be able to quickly analyze large amounts of graph data. And you can use S3. Here, I'll put this on the screen.
Actually, just coming back to vector storage, I think one of the other themes that we were starting to see is that vector storage is now being offered across a very large number of AWS services. We had PG vector support for Postgres.
Yes. Yep.
That came up a little while ago. We now have it available for, there's a Redis implement, was it Memcache? There was a Redis implementation of something that they just announced, support for vector data. Then you have vector data support that came up for
OpenSearch serverless vector engine.
Correct.
That just came out.
Yes.
Let's see, MemoryDB. Like I said, that's MemoryDB for Redis now supports vector search.
Was it? Correct.
Yes.
So a lot of new vector data stores are available for you to use. So depending on where your data resides, it's really neat to have the vector embedding be in that same data store so that you can access all that stuff in one shot and not have two completely different systems. So that's pretty neat. And I think you're going to start seeing a trend of everything being vector embedding enabled. So whatever is the data store, you probably also have a vector embedding sitting along with it.
Yeah, I think that's going to become a new practice that you're going to have to adopt. And then, like I said, having it everywhere rather than managing it's another vector store and then a shared key and then multiple lookups and multiple database sessions. That's part of that whole zero ETL idea as well, right? You don't want to be managing these connections between different databases.
Correct.
You could have Amazon do that for you, and you can just leverage the fact that you can have different views into your data. Okay, so with Neptune, so this, again, this is also enabling vector search. Here, I'll put this on screen. And I love how they show you how to do this. You can enable vector search within Neptune.
Yep.
So you can have a graph where the graph has pieces of text, and you can search on a Neptune graph to say for embedded pieces of knowledge. That's
I wonder
exciting.
in Neptune, again, I have so many questions in my head right now. When you have Neptune, basically, it's all about the relationships. It's all the
Yeah.
connections across data. Do you embed the entire path, or do you embed just one node at a time? And or is it a combination of node and relationship? So it'll be pretty neat to figure that out. Again, like you can see, we're doing all the real time. We've really not had the ability to catch up with all the announcements and all the details in here. So we just bring to you the things that we think are interesting that we will go back and look into. We've got tons and tons of notes of things that we need to go follow up on. So we will bring that to you as soon as we've had the time to digest it and package it up for you to consume.
Yeah, definitely. Should we talk about some of the what about the Redshift generative SQL query?
Oh, that is one that I absolutely love. So when you have very large Redshift data stores, you're typically spending a bunch of time writing up queries for what you're looking for. Now, in the query console in AWS, you can actually generate the SQL query from natural language, which is really neat. So because the models will understand what your data is and how it is organized, the query becomes much simpler. So you can articulate an intent in natural language, and it will generate the corresponding SQL for it, which is pretty awesome.
I'll put it on screen. I was just kind of thinking about, is it going to be the case that when we train up the next generation of data scientists, back in my day, we wrote queries by hand, and that's going to feel like writing assembly language by hand.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. There was a time when people would say, "Hey, I wrote assembly to do this because it was more efficient to do it."
Yeah,
you're going to have a similar, paradigm shift where you're like, who writes, SQL queries anymore?
Yeah, I love this. It says, ask me a question to generate a SQL suggestion for your connected database, and you can say, give me the top 3 venues. Well, let's start from the beginning one. This person had no knowledge of the schema, did not type a single line of SQL to find out the information that which state has the most venues, and it generates this query. So they are getting the state, and then on the second line, line 3, they're summarizing the number of venues from a certain table. They're grouping, ordering, and then limit 1, so that they've sorted by descending, and then limit 1, so that will be the one with the most values. That even though this is a really relatively straightforward SQL, it still takes you a bit of time to think through, okay, what do I want to do? And now being able to just type this out, look it over, and say, yeah, that does what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of time that you can spend. So this is a relatively simple schema, but the place where Redshift gets used, Redshift is basically a columnar database for all your OLAP queries, okay? And because it is OLAP, basically what's happening over there is you basically flattened out. So let's say you had a traditional database where you had a large number of different schemas with a bunch of joins that you would typically do. The flattened version of all of that goes and sits in Redshift, right? Because you don't want to do joins in Redshift. So the flattened version sits over there, so it's easy to access. You can get to the right data very quickly. It's indexed the right way. When you have that, you basically have numerous columns. Okay, you can have as many columns as you want, basically. But having all of those columns means writing queries for all of those columns, getting the right, I had, it's all lowercase and it's got an underscore in it or whatever. Like the amount of time it takes to just go figure all of that stuff out and design a query can take a while. And if you can do this for complex, queries, this would save you tons of time.
Yeah, I can see it being extremely empowering for analysts, especially when I used to do data science consulting. And so you'd go into a place and you'd have to very quickly learn the schema, the tables, what is where, how to join things together, and to be able to approach a fresh database that you've never seen before and have this kind of tool.
Correct.
That would be really, really interesting to do.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, the only solution for a relational database schema was to actually, dump out the entire, schema. And we used to have literally charts that we would paste, with each other, where you had these ERD diagrams that would tell you which column in a particular table is connected to which other column and what kind of relationship it had. it's just too much to digest. There's just so many dimensions to all of that data. Now it's super simple.
Yeah, we're going to do, again, as with all of these, we're going to do deeper dives into this. I really want to try out. Hopefully, I don't have to write a SQL query for a while. Hopefully, I can just ask questions and modify them. I wonder how this does on Kerr queries.
That'd be interesting. I think that should be another one as part of the AWS cost optimization one. We should actually do that. I do believe that QuickSight Q already does a bunch of that. So if you had QuickSight Q on your Kerr data as part of your Cloud Intelligence dashboard or the Kudos dashboard, you should actually be able to ask the very same questions.
So for context, the Kerr, the cost and usage report, that is what this is symbolizing. All your transactions, Amazon, broken down hour by hour, different types of spend, all in one long SQL database. You wouldn't actually ever print out the Kerr, but you query it, and you usually query it using Athena. But yeah, the idea is the same. If you can just query the Kerr with some natural language, it'll generate some SQL query, and then you can. Yeah, let's try that out.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, I think what I'd like to do for the next section is just very quickly talk about the various areas, because I know there's so many announcements. Even bringing them up one by one on the screen feels like we're doing injustice to it. But here are the areas, and I'm just going to talk through, the things that we are going to dive deeper into. So, of course, there are a bunch of other announcements around the ML and AI space. Tons of announcements around SageMaker. Everything from Canvas to the new API support for notebooks, where you can fire off jobs for code that's sitting in notebooks. All of that was absolutely amazing. I think it's going to simplify a lot of developers' life. Your data science scientists in notebooks. So yeah, really cool there. We had SageMaker pipelines that now have a much simpler developer experience that is being offered. So tons of stuff happening on SageMaker. It's been a fire hose again, but lots to catch up on. We have, again, the AI and the Bedrock set of announcements, lots of new models, lots of new capabilities, embeddings, stuff like that. The third series of announcements, actually the big flood of announcements, came around AWS partners. So a lot of new capabilities, a lot of new API, a lot of new features around how AWS partners can make their services, their solutions be more generally available to the wider AWS community. They've made it a lot easier and simpler for AWS partners to be in the AWS ecosystem for their customers. So when I was reading through some of them earlier today, it almost felt like, a partner would basically get an experience that is similar to what Amazon retail, vendors are probably experiencing, where they can get started in a few minutes. They can get their product into the hands of millions of customers in a matter of, just 5 or 10 minutes, and that's pretty awesome. Getting the AWS customer community and the partner community kind of closer together, being able to leverage each other's strengths is awesome.
So are these? One of them is access to the marketplace, right? Simplified access to the marketplace.
Correct.
That's really big, because the marketplace is, which is like an app store, right? The easiest way to get started with a SaaS product on AWS is to use the marketplace.
Correct. But again, there's also complexity, because it's a two-way system. Just like AWS Marketplace is a place where you can basically, deliver your software products and so on. Like, for example, CloudFix is on the AWS Marketplace. But as thousands of customers sign up for CloudFix, you have to take all of that data and bring it back into your CRM systems and bring it back into your financial systems, so that you can account for everything that's happening. So you don't want multiple systems that manage all of your data in different places. You need seamless integration so that you have one view of what's happening with your business, with your products, with the features, the feedback, all of that stuff. And so that ecosystem around how AWS partners interact with the marketplace and the customers in general, they just Amazonifying that experience and
making it an API, making it straightforward, making it a process that you can just build on, and then have your vendor experience be as good as any other Amazon experience.
Yeah, the lower the friction, the easier it is for businesses to take their products and offer it. Now, most of the interesting part over here is that most of these AWS partners are also AWS customers, where their products are built on AWS, and then they just come right back to and get distributed across other AWS customers. So it's a perfect example of an amazing ecosystem where you've learned something new, you figured out a pattern, now you can monetize it by sharing it with the larger group of AWS customers.
There'd be one AWS user paying another AWS user to use AWS resources
Correct.
to accomplish something for other AWS resources.
Yeah.
It works
But
out
at the
really
end of the day, as long as you're solving a critical business problem that is valuable to others, it's a great opportunity to have a very fast cycle closed loop system that allows you to deliver this and start monetizing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and the next category, we want to talk about, let's see, look at coverage.
I think those are my main,
Yeah.
like if there were buckets that I was talking about, those are the main ones that I would put out. Again, it's been
on the list.
a blur. The severe lack of sleep over the last 3 days, just because so many exciting things have been going on. I feel like I'm in this zombie mode right now. Things are just happening, and we haven't really had the time to digest anything. But I couldn't be more excited for all the things that have happened. I'm going to spend the rest of the year, I think, till the end of the year, just digesting all of this stuff. But we have an amazing panel later today.
Yes.
To help us at least get to the first step of that digestion process.
So we have Jeff Barrs coming, and it's starting at 4:00 today. So he's going to give us the big picture. What's the big picture message of reInvent 2023? What were his favorite takeaways? And then we have Lorenzo Winfrey from EC2 from Spot telling us, how do you save money with auto scaling groups? He had did you have a chance to see his Spot Invaders video game?
No, I haven't.
It was really clever. So they wanted to show you how reliable Spot can be.
Okay.
And so they made a Space Invaders type video game called Spot Invaders.
Okay.
And they have an actual video game, like an arcade machine set up, and they were wanting to show you how resilient it can be.
So you shoot out a Spot instance?
Exactly. So you're shooting Spot instances, but then they're starting more in the background, and they're showing you this is a really, really resilient system. And you think of Spot as being the most ephemeral thing, but with the tools on top of Spot, you can actually build an extremely resilient system. So check out Spot Invaders. And so he'll be here. We have Rick Ox and Letian Fang. They are from Compute Optimizer, and we're really excited to hear all the different. They have had so many announcements over the last week.
Yeah,
just had 32-day look back is now standard for Compute Optimizer. So there's 14-day and 32 days. We want to ask, when would you use which? Right, because they're both available.
So I was actually talking to Rick, and he was like, "There's no reason to do 14 anymore. They just have to do the work to get it out of the system." But people have 14 days as the defaults. But 32 days should be the thing that you actually choose.
Well, one thing we know from GP2 is that it takes a long time to change a default setting. So,
yes. Yeah. So because people are, there's a lot of documentation. There's a lot of knowledge out there that talks about 14 days. So it's very hard. And just as a principle, you have to assume that someone is doing something that is very specific to that decision around 14 days. Mm-hmm. So you want to give people enough time to be able to, change all of that and switch over to 32 days. So changing defaults is not the easiest thing, even though it seems simple. But 32 days is what you should choose. Set the headroom threshold, set the percentages that you want, set the P values that you need, and you can customize instance families that you care about or instance types that you care about. So
if you have questions for Rick, please submit them now. We will get that to him and also submit them live. Yes. And finally, we have Yuri Prokodio. He's coming.
Correct.
And we're going to talk about essentially what I've been hearing referred to as the newer versions of all of the cost and usage tools, the Kudos dashboard,
Cost Explorer, and the Cloud Intelligence dashboard. All of them are they've all got a ramp. If you've not seen version 5 of those dashboards, they're pretty neat. Now you get the Kudos dashboard as part of Cost Explorer, which is also pretty awesome. So tons of amazing new announcements. That team has done an incredible amount of work over the last 4 to 6 months. So we're going to have Yuri over here talking about all of that and answering any questions that you might have around the Kudos dashboards.
And then also coming up today is the Werner Vogel's keynote. That's starting at 8:30. He brings a lot of creativity and fun to his keynote. Last year was the Matrix parody where they talked about the synchronous versus asynchronous world. I'm looking forward to see how he weaves generative AI into his view on things as the CTO. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how he does that. And then I'm going to be listening to that while trying to transform this space from a 2-person studio to a 6-person studio. And we will be ready at 4:00 for an excellent panel of guests. And then tonight is replay.
Absolutely. So today, basically, is the last day of reInvent. All of us head back tomorrow. But this has been such a blast. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day today. Again, Werner's keynote is going to be excellent. I'm just very curious to see what the theme is going to be. So looking forward to that. As always, thank you all for attending. I know it's really early in the morning. Some of you are catching this later in the day as part of your live stream or as part of your content consumption activities. But thank you so much for logging in, signing in, watching the videos. We really appreciate all the feedback that you've been giving us. And if you have more, please let them come our way. We look forward to seeing you all soon.
All right.
At
Thanks,
4 p.m.
everyone. See you at 4.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry because CloudFix is AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost-saving opportunities and not just finds. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part of all, it works non-stop. Stop overspending on AWS and click on the button to start
In Amazon, we
now.
have leadership principles.
Leadership principles.
The most important leadership principle.
First leadership principle.
Customer obsession.
Customer obsession.
Customer obsession.
We are a customer-obsessed company.
Ultimately, we want our customers to succeed.
So we want our customers to succeed with us.
Customers do better, we do better.
We believe a happy customer is a long-term customer.
If the customers succeed, they're going to find ways to consume more and more services.
Eliminating infrastructural waste, customers will be able to grow their business.
We drive down prices on bandwidth, storage, instances.
We believe the reason behind AWS's creation was to provide that elasticity and cloud value.
If we do what is in the best interest of our customers, period, the rest of it will work itself out.
Customers trust us. They know we are here to help.
I really love that emphasis on customer trust because it's more than a vendor. It's a utility that we need to be able to count on for the infinite horizon future. That trust is critical.